Hey everyone, welcome back. We're diving into something pretty interesting today. You've sent us a ton of research on the Spanish market, clearly getting ready to make some moves there. But there's this one thing that pops up again and again. It's kind of a sneaky challenge that could really make or break your success.
Yeah, I can see how that would be top of mind for anyone going into a new market.
For sure.
Definitely.
And that's the language barrier, right? You might think, oh, I'll just, brush up on my high school Spanish, but it goes way deeper than that.
It really does.
It does. In fact, did you know that only 22% of Spanish executives feel actually comfortable doing business in English?
Wow. That's a really low number when you think about it,
Yeah.
especially in today's globalized world.
So let's kind of unpack that and explore why speaking the language isn't just like a courtesy. It's really a strategic move
Yeah.
that can unlock some serious business advantages.
It's funny because a lot of companies see this language barrier as just a simple hurdle to overcome, right?
Right.
Like, okay, we'll just get a translator or use some fancy software and call it a day. But it's really not that simple.
Okay.
It's more like trying to climb Mount Everest in flip-flops.
Okay. I like that analogy.
You might technically be moving forward,
Yeah.
but you're missing the essential gear and expertise.
Yeah. You're going to have a bad time.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's more than just understanding the words right.
Yeah.
It's about connecting
It really is.
on a deeper level.
Think about it this way. You're in a meeting with a potential client, and you're trying to explain this really carefully crafted value proposition. But it's all going through a translator.
Right.
Every nuance, every carefully chosen word gets filtered through this third party.
Yeah.
It's like playing a game of telephone.
Hmm.
By the time it reaches your client, it's lost a lot of its impact and meaning.
And in a culture like Spain's where relationships are so important,
Oh, absolutely.
I imagine that first impression is everything.
It can make or break the deal.
It can, yeah.
You hit the nail on the head. Spanish business culture really values direct and clear communication.
Right?
So when you're constantly struggling to express yourself or understand what's being said,
Yeah,
it just erodes that sense of authenticity and connection.
makes sense.
Imagine you're trying to close a major deal and you crack a joke to lighten the mood,
Right.
but the joke gets lost in translation and falls completely flat.
Oh, that's awkward.
It's incredibly awkward.
Yeah.
Now, instead of building rapport,
Right.
you've got this awkward silence, and your client's wondering if you really get them.
Yeah, that could be a deal breaker right there.
It could be.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen.
I see how those little misunderstandings can snowball into big problems.
Mhm.
And it's not just about avoiding faux pas, it's about beating that trust.
That's the foundation of everything.
Yeah.
Research actually shows that speaking through a translator reduces perceived authenticity by 47%.
Wow.
Almost half of your credibility just vanishes
That's huge.
because you're not speaking the language.
Especially when you think about how hard it is to build trust in the first place.
Yeah.
It's like taking 2 steps back before you even take one forward.
I like to call it a hidden meeting blocker.
Okay.
If Spanish executives don't feel comfortable conducting business in English,
Mm-hmm.
they're less likely to take your calls and agree to meetings or partner with you. It might be polite,
Yeah.
but behind the scenes, they're thinking,
Yeah.
if this company can't even bother to communicate with us in our own language,
Yeah.
how serious can they be about doing business here?
It makes you seem almost dismissive of their culture.
It does.
Right, like you haven't fully committed to being a part of their world.
Exactly.
And I bet that has a ripple effect throughout the whole sales process.
Absolutely. The data shows that meeting acceptance rates plummet by 64% when language accommodation is required.
Wow.
So for every 10 meetings, you might secure speaking Spanish.
Okay.
You're only getting about 3 if you stick to English.
That's a big difference.
And it doesn't stop there. Follow-up engagement suffers decision timelines, stretch out, and accessing those key decision makers becomes an uphill battle.
So it's not just about like a few missed opportunities. It's like
Right.
a systematic disadvantage
It is.
that puts you behind from day one.
You said it perfectly.
Yeah.
It impacts every stage of the process, from the initial handshake to closing the deal and nurturing those long-term relationships.
Okay, so we've established that this language barrier is a real force to be reckoned with.
Mm-hmm.
But in today's world, it's so tempting to think that technology can just bridge the gap.
Oh, I know.
Right, it's the easy way out. Surely with all these translation apps and AI software, we can just skip the whole language learning thing.
It's tempting.
Right.
I get it. But hold on.
Okay.
This is where things get interesting. Technology definitely has a role to play, but it's not a cure-all when it comes to navigating the nuances of business communication, especially in a market like Spain.
Okay. Let's dive into that. What are we missing when we rely solely on technology for these conversations?
Well, first off, even the best translation software can't capture the full complexity of human language, especially in a business context.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, it might get you 82% accuracy on average,
Okay.
but when you're dealing with specialized terminology, that number drops down to a shaky 67%.
Thanks.
Imagine negotiating a complex contract and key terms are mistranslated.
Yeah.
What could that cost you in the long run?
That's a pretty big gamble to take, especially when you're talking about potentially millions of dollars.
Huge gamble.
Yeah.
And don't forget about those regional dialects and variations in Spain.
Oh, right, of course.
A word or phrase that's perfectly acceptable in Madrid might be considered offensive in Barcelona.
Uh-huh.
Technology struggles to pick up on these subtle cultural cues,
Yeah.
and that can lead to embarrassing and costly missteps.
So it's not just about avoiding embarrassing flubs, it's about understanding that cultural context, the unspoken rules of engagement
Absolutely.
that can really make or break a deal.
You got it. And beyond the accuracy issues, there's also the psychological impact of relying on technology for these conversations.
Right.
Studies show that a staggering 86% of Spanish executives feel less connected
Wow.
when communication is mediated by technology.
That makes sense.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Would you rather connect with a real person who understands your language and culture,
Right.
or a robotic voice spitting out translated phrases?
I know what I would choose.
Exactly. And that lack of human connection can have a real impact on your bottom line.
Okay.
Decision confidence goes down, relationships suffer, and the entire business development process becomes less efficient and less effective.
So we're back to that human element again.
We are.
It's not just about translating words, it's about building trust, understanding nuances, creating those genuine connections that are so vital in the Spanish business world.
It's all connected.
It is. Okay, I think we've established that the language barrier is a real challenge.
Yeah.
And that technology alone isn't the answer.
It's not the silver bullet people think it is.
So where do we go from here? What are the alternatives?
That's the million-dollar question,
Yeah.
and one we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
But before we jump into solutions, I think it's important to quickly recap what we've learned, because it's crucial for understanding why these solutions work.
Sounds good.
So what have we got? Only a small percentage of Spanish executives are truly comfortable doing business in English.
Right.
This language barrier impacts every stage of the business development process, from initial contact to building those all-important long-term relationships.
Yeah.
And while technology can be helpful in certain situations, relying solely on it can actually hinder trust building and even hurt your bottom line.
Absolutely. So it's not just about comprehension, it's about cultural understanding,
It is.
building rapport, and establishing that genuine connection.
All of that.
That's so crucial in the Spanish business world.
You got it.
Okay, so with those key insights in mind,
Yeah.
we are ready to explore the solutions. Stay tuned.
I'm excited to dive in.
Okay, so we've laid out the challenge, but now let's talk solutions. We've seen how this language barrier can be a real roadblock in the Spanish market.
Right.
But what if instead of seeing it as a problem, we saw it as an opportunity?
I like that.
Right, an opportunity to differentiate ourselves, to connect on a deeper level,
Yeah.
and to build those rock-solid relationships that are so crucial for success in this market.
I think that's the key here, shifting your perspective from seeing language as a barrier to seeing it as a bridge.
Okay.
And the cornerstone of that bridge is having native Spanish representation on your team.
Makes sense to me. If the goal is to build trust and understanding, who better to do that than someone who lives and breathes the language and culture?
Exactly. It's not just about translating words. It's about understanding the unspoken cues, the cultural sensitivities, and the way relationships are built in Spain. It's about being able to read between the lines, to anticipate needs, and to communicate in a way that resonates on a deeper level.
It's like having a cultural insider on your team, someone who can guide you through the nuances and complexities of the Spanish business world.
I like that, a cultural insider.
Right. And I bet that makes a huge difference in how you're perceived by potential clients.
Oh, absolutely. The Spanish Chamber of Commerce did some fascinating research on this.
Oh, wow.
And the results are pretty compelling. They found that simply by having native Spanish speakers on your team, you can dramatically improve your chances of success in this market.
Okay. I'm all ears. Give me the highlights. What kind of impact are we talking about here?
Well, for starters, meeting acceptance rates skyrocket by a whopping 73% when outreach is conducted in native Spanish.
Wow.
Think about it. For every 10 meetings you might get trying to do business in English,
Okay.
you could potentially secure 17 just by speaking the language.
That's huge. That's a game changer right there. It's like suddenly having a key that unlocks all these doors that were previously closed to you.
It really is. It's a powerful tool.
Yeah.
And it's not just about getting more meetings. It's about getting the right meetings. Access to decision makers improves by 67% compared to English language approaches.
No, wow.
So you're not just talking to gatekeepers anymore. You're sitting down with the people who have the power to say yes.
So not only are you getting more meetings, but you're getting to the heart of the decision-making process much faster.
Exactly.
That can shave weeks, even months, off your sales cycle.
It absolutely can. And the quality of those meetings is also significantly higher. Calls tend to last 2-4 times longer,
Wow.
which means you have more time to build rapport, dive deeper into the client's needs, and really solidify that relationship. Plus, you see a 58% increase in information sharing,
Okay.
which means you're getting a much clearer understanding of their challenges and how you can help them.
It makes sense when you can communicate effectively. You're not just exchanging information, you're building a genuine connection, a foundation of trust that is essential for any successful business partnership.
You're exactly right. And that trust translates into tangible results.
Yeah.
The Spanish Chamber of Commerce found that first call credibility ratings increased by 64% with native representation.
It's like that saying you never get a second chance to make a first impression.
Right.
And in the Spanish market where relationships are so important,
It's everything.
that first impression can make or break the deal.
It really can. And it goes beyond just feeling good. That increased trust also leads to real business benefits. For example, price sensitivity decreases by 27% when the value proposition is articulated in native Spanish.
So they're not just more likely to do business with you, they're also more willing to pay a premium for your products or services.
That's right.
Because they trust you. They understand the value you bring to the table.
It all comes down to trust.
That's a pretty powerful advantage.
It is. It's a testament to the power of genuine human connection. When you speak their language, you're not just a faceless corporation. You're a partner, a collaborator, someone they can trust to understand their needs and help them succeed.
We've seen the positive impact on meetings, trust building, and even pricing. But what about the bottom line? Does this translate into shorter sales cycles and bigger deals?
It absolutely does. Research shows that companies with native Spanish representation enjoy a 34% shorter sales cycle.
Wow.
That means you're closing deals faster, generating revenue more quickly, and freeing up your team to focus on new opportunities.
That's a significant time savings, especially in today's fast-paced business world. And I imagine that also frees up your resources to focus on what really matters, building those long-term relationships that are the foundation of success in the Spanish market.
Exactly. And it's not just about speed. It's about size as well.
Yeah.
Deal sizes increase by an average of 22% with native Spanish negotiations.
So not only are you closing deals faster, but you're closing bigger deals.
Yeah.
That's a winning combination.
It is. It really pays to speak the language.
Those are some pretty impressive numbers. It's clear that investing in native language capability isn't just a nice to have, it's a strategic move that can significantly impact your bottom line.
It's an investment that pays off in many ways. And it goes beyond just the initial sale. You also see improvements in multi-stakeholder engagement, implementation success rates, and ultimately a 41% increase in customer lifetime value.
That speaks to the power of building lasting partnerships.
It does.
When you can connect on a deeper level, when you can communicate effectively and build that foundation of trust, it creates a ripple effect that benefits both parties for years to come.
It's about creating a win-win scenario where both you and your Spanish clients feel valued, understood, and empowered to succeed. Now the question becomes, how do you acquire that native speaker advantage? There are a few different paths companies typically take, each with its own pros and cons.
All right, let's break it down. What are the options?
Well, the most common approach is internal hiring. This involves recruiting and hiring bilingual sales professionals to join your team.
Seems straightforward enough. You find someone who speaks Spanish and understands the culture, and you bring them on board. But I imagine it's not always that easy, is it?
It can be quite challenging, actually. First of all, there's the cost factor. Hiring a bilingual professional can cost anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000 annually.
Yeah.
And that's just for one person. If you're trying to build a team that can cover the entire Spanish market, those costs can add up quickly.
That's a significant investment, especially for smaller companies or startups that might be working with limited resources. What other challenges are there?
Well, there's the time factor.
Hmm.
The recruitment, onboarding, and training process can easily take 3 to 6 months, maybe even longer.
Okay.
And that's before you even start to see any real results.
So it's a slow and expensive option. What are the other approaches?
Another option is relying on translation services. This could involve hiring interpreters for meetings or using software to translate documents and emails.
This seems like a more cost-effective solution, at least in the short term.
Right.
But I imagine there are drawbacks here as well.
There are. First and foremost, it creates a layer of separation between you and your potential clients. Even with the best interpreters, that flow of conversation is disrupted, and it's harder to build that all-important rapport.
It's like trying to have a heart-to-heart conversation through a third party.
Exactly.
You lose that immediacy, that sense of genuine connection.
You lose that human touch. As we discussed earlier, relying too heavily on technology can actually hinder trust and make it harder to close deals. Plus, you're still at the mercy of the technology's accuracy, which, as we know, isn't always perfect.
So while translation services can be a useful tool in certain situations, they're not a sustainable long-term solution for building a strong presence in the Spanish market.
They might be a useful Band-Aid, but they won't address the underlying issue, which is the need for genuine cultural understanding and authentic communication.
Okay, so we've talked about internal hiring and translation services. What's the third option?
The third option, and one that's gaining increasing popularity, is the outsourced native speaker model.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about how this works.
Essentially, you partner with a specialized firm that provides you with a team of native Spanish sales professionals who are dedicated to representing your company in the Spanish market. It's like having your own in-house team, but without the overhead and hassle of hiring and managing them directly.
So you get the expertise and cultural fluency of a native team,
Right.
but with more flexibility and potentially lower costs. Sounds like a pretty sweet deal.
It can be a game changer. And it's not just about language skills. These professionals also have a deep understanding of the Spanish business culture, etiquette, and market dynamics. They know the ins and outs of the market, they understand the nuances of negotiation, and they can help you navigate the complexities of doing business in Spain.
It's like having a secret weapon, a team of experts who can guide you every step of the way. But what about control? I imagine some companies might be hesitant to outsource such a critical part of their business.
That's a valid concern. But reputable outsourced firms have robust systems in place to ensure accountability and transparency. You'll have regular updates on progress, access to detailed reports, and clear communication channels to ensure your needs are being met. You're not just handing over the reins, you're forming a partnership with a team that is dedicated to your success.
So it's about finding the right partner, someone you trust, to represent your brand and your values in the Spanish market.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when done correctly, this outsourced model can be incredibly powerful. It allows you to tap into a pool of talent that might otherwise be inaccessible, and it frees up your internal resources to focus on your core competencies.
It's like getting a fast track to success in the Spanish market, but without sacrificing control or quality.
Precisely. And research from Deloitte confirms this. Their market entry analysis actually identifies the outsourced native speaker model as having the highest ROI and the lowest risk profile for initial Spanish market entry.
That's a pretty strong endorsement. It seems like this could be the missing piece of the puzzle for companies that are serious about conquering the Spanish market.
It's definitely a strategy worth considering. Of course, the best approach will always depend on the specific circumstances of each company, their goals, resources, and risk tolerance.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, but it's a powerful tool that can make a significant difference in your ability to achieve success in the Spanish market.
I agree. It's about finding the right fit for your unique situation.
Well, you've given us a lot to think about. Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I want to make sure our listener has a clear understanding of the three main approaches we've discussed.
Let's recap. We have the internal hiring approach, which offers direct control, but is slow, expensive, and less flexible. Then there's the translation services approach, which can be a useful temporary fix, but ultimately creates barriers and hinders trust building. And finally, we have the outsourced native speaker model, which offers a compelling blend of expertise, flexibility, cost-effectiveness, and strong ROI.
Great summary. So for our listener, the key question is, which of these approaches makes the most sense for their specific situation and their long-term goals in the Spanish market?
Exactly. And that's a question we'll be exploring further in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll be delving into the key considerations for choosing the right approach and offering practical tips for maximizing your investment and setting yourself up for success in the Spanish market.
Sounds like we've got even more valuable insights to uncover. Stay tuned. All right, so we've explored the challenges of that language barrier in the Spanish market and laid out the three main approaches: internal hiring translation services and the outsourced native speaker model. Now, the big question, how do you know which path is the best fit for your unique situation? It's like choosing the right tool for the job, right?
Exactly. You wouldn't use a hammer to tighten a screw.
Exactly. So each approach has its own strengths and weaknesses, and the key is to really choose the one that best aligns with your specific goals, your resources, and your risk tolerance.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So let's break it down. What are some of the key factors companies should consider when making this decision?
Well, the first and most obvious is your budget.
Right?
How much are you realistically willing to invest to overcome this language barrier? Internal hiring, as we discussed, can be a significant financial commitment, both in terms of salary and the time it takes to build that team.
Right. And those ongoing costs can be a real challenge for smaller companies or startups that are, just starting to explore the Spanish market. It's like trying to furnish a whole house when you've only just moved in. You might need to prioritize and get creative with your resources.
Exactly. In those cases, outsourcing might be a more attractive option because it offers a more predictable cost structure that can be adjusted as your needs evolve.
Hmm.
It's like renting furniture instead of buying it outright. You get what you need without the long-term commitment.
So it's about aligning your investment with your level of commitment and your anticipated return. Makes sense. What else should companies be thinking about?
Timeline's another critical factor. How quickly do you need to see results? If you're trying to capitalize on a time-sensitive opportunity, internal hiring might not be the best bet because of that lengthy recruitment and training process.
Right. You don't want to miss the boat, so to speak, while you're waiting for your team to be ready.
Exactly. And that's where outsourcing can really shine. You can have a team of native Spanish speakers representing your company in a matter of days, not months.
So outsourcing provides that speed and agility that's so crucial in today's business world.
It does.
But what about control?
Mm-hmm.
I know that's a big concern for some companies. They want to be hands-on with every aspect of their business.
It's a valid concern. And this is where the decision often comes down to company culture and risk tolerance.
Okay.
Some companies thrive on having their finger on the pulse, meticulously controlling every detail of their sales process.
Yeah.
For them, building an internal team might be the preferred route.
It gives them that sense of ownership and direct oversight.
It does.
But I imagine it also comes with a greater burden of responsibility. They're not just managing individuals. They're essentially creating a whole new department,
Right.
a mini culture within their existing company structure.
Absolutely. You're not just hiring salespeople.
Yeah.
You're taking on the challenge of building a team that understands the nuances of the Spanish market, that can navigate cultural differences, and that can represent your brand effectively in a new and unfamiliar environment.
That's a lot to take on, especially for companies that are already stretched thin, juggling multiple priorities.
Yeah, it's a big undertaking.
And that's why outsourcing can be so appealing. It's like hiring an experienced tour guide who knows the terrain, speaks the language, and can guide you safely to your destination. You're still in control of the itinerary, but you have a trusted expert by your side to help you navigate the challenges and make the most of the journey.
That's a great analogy.
So you're leveraging specialized expertise without having to build it from scratch. It's like having a secret weapon in your arsenal, a team of experts who are ready to hit the ground running.
That's a great way to put it. But it's important to remember that outsourcing isn't a magic bullet. It requires careful planning, clear communication, and a strong partnership between the company and the outsourced firm.
It's like any relationship. It takes effort, trust, and open communication to make it work.
Exactly. You need to find the right partner, set clear expectations, and work together towards shared goals.
Wrong.
When done correctly, it can be an incredibly effective way to overcome the language barrier and unlock the full potential of the Spanish market.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful.
It has.
We've covered a lot of ground, and I think we've given our listener a solid framework for making this important decision.
I agree. We've explored the challenges, the opportunities, and the different approaches to tackling the language barrier in the Spanish market.
And I think we've highlighted that it's not just about the mechanics of translation.
Right.
It's about building genuine human connections, understanding cultural nuances, and creating those win-win partnerships.
Absolutely. It's about seeing the language barrier not as an obstacle to be overcome, but as a bridge to be built. A bridge that leads to greater understanding, stronger relationships, and ultimately greater success in the Spanish market.
So to our listener, as you weigh your options and chart your course into this exciting market, remember that the language you choose to speak is more than just words. It's a reflection of your commitment, your respect, and your willingness to truly connect with the people you're trying to reach.
Well said. And now that you have a deeper understanding of the landscape, what steps will you take to ensure your Spanish market entry is a resounding success?
That's the question to ponder as we wrap up today's deep dive. We've given you the tools and insights. Now it's time to put them into action. We're confident that with